Hey girls, and welcome back to our weekly Zoom calls. So, today's topic, one of you girls popped this in your check-in last week. So, I thought, wow, this is great. I've done some trainings on sort of reps and sets and progressive overload already, but I think it's always nice to get fresh eyes on a topic, maybe just come at it from a different angle as well. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy today's session. All right. So actually, before I go ahead, yeah. So obviously, the question was, why am I doing different rep ranges? Why do some exercises have some reps and other ones have different reps? And also, sometimes you might find that there are different rep ranges within various sets of an exercise within a session as well. So that's what I'm going to be doing is explaining some of that as well, and going through that because I think it's really good when you understand why you're doing it. You're not just, you know, taking orders and getting on with it. I'm not just telling you what to do. I really love explaining as well. So sometimes things might come second nature to myself, or maybe some girls might think, oh, like, yeah, or I might think, yeah, they've got experience, they know, but there's never a stupid question. And I think it's always really, really important just to be as transparent as possible. Let me know if you don't understand anything. It's my job and it's my duty to educate you, to find out the information if I'm unsure as well. So just kind of prefacing there. All right. So quite often, when you're training, right? So we already know that resistance training is the protocol that we are focusing on. There can be some elements of HIIT within this, but you're not just doing random exercises. And even if you are training at home, there's still a format to it. There's still, again, there's some mobility and stability might sort of have a bit more of a theme when you train from home, or it might be more of a pulse raiser that we opt for when it comes to the gym stuff. But when it comes to the actual body of your session, and we're talking specifically about the resistance training, it's really good to sort of have an understanding why we're doing this. So firstly, we want to make sure that we're doing the right stuff. So if you're training without any structure, it's wasted effort, right? It's not just about trying to just do random things. We have reps, sets, and we apply different weight loads as well. These are tools and they're just not random numbers that we kind of go, right, this is what I want to throw in. Now, albeit when you are a complete beginner, you might be testing the waters and trying to figure out what kind of works for you and where your strength lies and your baseline strength lies as well. Okay, so typically for beginners that might be why we kind of go full body machine stuff just to kind of gauge where you are. But yeah, the idea of us working with these different things, if you like, these different tools, is to stimulate our muscle in multiple ways. Okay. And avoid plateaus, maximize our time and recovery. So that's why we've got all these different things here. So it's not just about working out, it's actually being intentional with building our bodies. There's a reason why we're doing a lot of this stuff, and hopefully, this will make a lot more sense. We'll kind of talk about some of the language used. And this is another thing when it comes to your training, there's always different levels, right? So there'll be levels with working on specific areas of a session. And again, for some of you, you might be working on things like tempo as well. Tempos can be quite an advanced thing to kind of understand. But again, that just starts to get a little bit more advanced as you go along. And also some more bits of language on the next slide is stuff like this here. So obviously reps, that's one rep is one complete movement. So if we think bicep curl, that's one rep. But let's say I did 8 reps and I just flexed my bicep, and I did those 8 reps, that would become a set. Now, that's obviously the group of reps that you hit before you have a rest. Okay, so you'll have your rest, and then when we're thinking about our load, That's actually the weight or the resistance used. So this could be not only just like, the pin that you get on the machine, it could be dumbbells, it could be barbells, it could be pre-made, sort of pre set up dumbbells or barbells and stuff, the ones that kind of already have all the weights on them. It could be bands as well. So bands, obviously, there's different resistance that we get from bands. And actually, I can be quite physical here today. I've just realized I've got a heap of bands. Okay, so we've got various different bands. These are this is a bit more TheraBand, so it's going to be a bit lighter. These are the big loop bands. This obviously will be less resistance. And the thicker band, although it's harder and heavier, might actually be, again, if we relate it to the exercise, the skinny band would be, let's say we go RDL. Everyone knows what a Romanian deadlift is, sort of hinging backwards, bending at the knees, but pushing your bum back. If you were to do it with a red skinny band, it would be super easy. But if you did it with a green band, it would be really hard, right? However, if you did assisted pull-ups, the resistance can also work in the opposite way, where the red band becomes ridiculously hard and the green band becomes super easy. Hopefully that made sense. And then we have this other area called, these other bits of language that you might see, right? You've got RIR and you've got RPE. Okay, so this sort of stuff, again, is sort of gauging your effort, and some might sound a little bit more advanced. The RIR is called reps in reserve. So typically, this is definitely something that when you are really, really super consistent with your training and you're hammering it every week and you're super consistent, let's say you're doing 4 times a week and you're absolutely smashing it, you're applying progressive overload, you're checking your technique, you're increasing, the difficulty within the session. At some point, you might need something like a deload, right? And so a deload, typically, sometimes you girls don't really know that you're getting a deload, but it could be when you're a little bit under the weather, or maybe you're going on holiday, or that things have, there's a bit of a CNS overload. So again, it's just a lot of heavy stress or information within the tissue. So then that's where we can obviously start to pull things back. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is, like, for example, reps and reserves could be used in something like a deload or even a beginner-ish type thing as well. So it would be the amount of reps that you have left over before you hit failure. So typically, if you have picked a weight, you've got a 5 kilo weight and you know that you can do 15 reps, it might be that you allow some reps in reserve. And I might say, make sure you don't hit failure. Think about 3 to 4 reps in reserve. So e.g., you would do maybe like 11 or 12 or something, right? RPE is super, super easy to understand. This, again, across the board is used in many different formats. So Riti, you'll understand from like a physical sort of therapist thing as well. The RPE is a rate of perceived exertion. So that, again, this is your effort gauge. This is probably the easiest effort gauge for you to understand. You might see some sessions where I literally am like 60%, especially if you've had loads of time off. I don't want you hammering stuff at 100% all the time, but it's really understand that it needs to be relative to where you are currently in your programming and in your journey as well. Hopefully that makes sense. And if either of you ladies have got any questions right now, we can utilize the Zoom chat as well to see if you've got any questions so far. But yeah,
I've got a question.
oh yeah, go for it.
So, you talked about deload and the number of reps. Sorry, no, let's take one at a time. So, we do sets and reps, and there's always a rest time in between
Yeah.
each set. Is it important the amount of time allocated for that rest period? Is it important to do that, or what's the impact on your muscles and what you're doing? Or can you just go from one set to the other to the other?
I would say you need to have that rest, otherwise your effort is not going to be as good as it would be if you had the rest. So typically, when you're training at home, I usually give you a lot higher in terms of reps because you again, it might be that you don't really have access to heavier stuff, and then we go for shorter rest periods. Sometimes the rest periods can help with time as well. I'm going to talk a little bit on that as well within this presentation as well. But yeah, rest is really important. It's so important, and I'll just say it here because I don't. I think I may have put it in here somewhere, but I'll say it anyway. When you get people who are powerlifters that lift very, very low reps and maximal effort, they do like 1 rep or 3 reps or whatever, right? They do really, really low stuff. Like they typically, again, some of them when they're doing their training and stuff, if they're lifting in a rep range of, I don't know, 3 to 7 reps, they might they might actually do like a 2 to 3 minute rest, like 3 minutes, 5 minutes rest, even in some cases. So it's really, really important. Again, it's allowing your body to recover so that you've got enough juice to go again, right? So we're not using exercise to just burn calories or just do, we're not just trying to, you're not using you're obviously using calories, but that's not our main focus. A lot of it will have to do with what we're trying to trigger. And again, that can come down to things like muscle fiber types as well, which I haven't spoken about within this session, but again, we can definitely talk. I can give you a little bit of a theory on that as well. But does that make sense, Rekha?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to, because usually I'll do a set and then I'm usually rushing for time. So even though it's a minute between each or 60 like 30 seconds or whatever, I'm usually like, okay, I've done one, quick, I need to start the next one. So I
Oh,
just want to
no.
clarify, is
Mm.
it a let your body rest kind of thing and take that time, or does it impact the way impact your actual workout other
It
than
will
tiredness?
it will impact your workout for sure because you're not going to be able to lift with the effort and the intention that you could if you had
Okay.
rest. Again, it's not just about rushing through, and that's another thing. It's about intention. I would prefer you did one set, one full quality set, or even 2 full quality sets, but you actually had the rest in between. As opposed to it might be that there's 4 sets in the session and you go, oh my God, I've got to do 4 sets. So let me just go back to back to back to back to back. It would be better if you just went, I'm not going to do the last two sets because I'm short on time. I'm just going to do the first set or first 2 sets, sorry, and make sure I've got that adequate rest in between so that you are actually able to lift with intention.
Okay. Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Perfect. All right. So now we're going to talk a little bit about rep ranges and their purpose. So why
Okay.
there's all these different rep ranges. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So again, your session might be made up of various different rep ranges within the session. And again, if I talk very loosely or, again, broadly here, there are different muscle fiber types. So when I started training as a gym instructor 20 years ago or plus, we only
Mm.
knew at that point that there were 2 different types of muscle fibers. We had type 1 and we had type 2. Fast forward, when I delayed a few years, I actually went to university a little bit later. When I went and did that, I then discovered there's all of a sudden you've got type 1 and then you've got type 2A and B. And I was like, what the hell is all of this? So there are different muscle fiber types, and again, a lot of it will, again, physiology. There's always advancements and stuff, and but again, it's just to also tell you that there's a reason why we're doing these different things. So obviously, different ranges will target different muscle fiber types. When we're thinking about low reps, there's a more of a mechanical tension, right? You're really focusing. Again, this is that, for example, the 8 to 10 rep area, nobody really does less reps unless we're working on mobility. That tends to be when I give you less reps to do. But when we are thinking about the 8 to 10 reps, this is the heavy end of hypertrophy. So this is where the muscles are, this is where they've got the ability to start to change, right? And this is where you're going to get changes in strength and size. And again, this is typically this will be more based around the compound movements. Yes, I might do some isolation work for some of you if that's what we're really focusing on, because this can really help create a transfer to different movement patterns that might require that really heavy strength as well. So let's maybe even say, for example, bicep curls, because we've used a bit of the biceps today. With the bicep curls, again, it might be that the reason we're doing bicep curls is not just so you get nice shapely biceps, but we actually want you to get stronger because we want it to relate to when you do chin ups, for example. So there'll be a carryover. The same might also go for certain positions of doing tricep work as well. They might have a carryover for, how you're able to push yourself in push-ups and stuff as well. Um, but yeah, back to sort of staying on track. So 8 to 10 reps. Typically, it's the heavy end of hypertrophy. And again, this is the stuff that's going to help you change your strength and your size. Typically, I'll program them for compound movements and earlier on in the session. The 12 to 15, hello? The 12 to 15 rep range is more of a moderate load, and there's more of a crossover here. So again, there'll be a crossover between 10 to 12 reps as well. And obviously we're almost blending the different zones there. So when we start to go that little bit higher, moderate load, still some ability to get some hypertrophy, which is that change in, shape. But there's also some joint safety around that as well, because when you start going really heavy, it can have an impact on your joints if you're just hammering it like that all the time. And the amount of force. And again, ladies, I say this really lightly because a lot of us are not training that hard in terms of how maximally this is probably more related to, the sort of ego lifters, where again, just coming into a bit more the 12 to 15 reps again can help with that joint safety. And yeah, typically this might be more like mid-session, a bit of compound, bit of isolation. And then when we come on to the 15 to 20 rep range, this is more lighter stuff. This is definitely going to be more endurance based muscle type fibers. And it is, again, effectively, it's more of a pump as well. It can be quite nice as a finisher. So let's say, for example, we take glutes, for example, you might use it at the end of your session. Let's say if we're doing some banded work, 15 to 20 reps, or there's some clams in there, or there's some abductions or something. Again, it's just allowing you to get that sort of pump and the sort of blood to the muscles, just to kind of really force it out, if you like. I must say, I'm having a hot coffee and I am sweating. Why do we do this to ourselves?
Don't you drink hot drinks because when you have a hot drink, your system actually cools down?
Potentially, yeah, you're right.
That's what they say. When you have a cold drink, your body goes into the shock mode, as in like you're having a cold drink, it needs to do something to warm you up. So they say when you have
Yeah.
cold drinks, you actually get hotter. And when you have a hot drink, your body is like, oh, there's something warm coming. I need to cool down. So it actually cools you down.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. You're right.
But when it's hot, we all want cold things.
We do, don't we? But mostly what I tend to do with the cold drinks, they're usually sat like side onto my face. So, okay, this is fun. I love having you girls here on a lunchtime. This is great. Okay, so why do we have multiple ranges within one workout? Again, we're targeting different muscle fiber types, so we've got that crossover of building strength and endurance. And yeah, again, it just prevents any sort of adaptation where you kind of get almost like just used to doing it one way. It's just going to help create a bit more broadness as well within those fibers. Again, it can help with joint health as well. Wouldn't be fun if you did everything absolutely like close to maximal within a session. and it keeps training a little bit more engaging, a bit more fun as well. So yeah, this is the thing. So it's just another key reminder that we are not chasing a burn with reps. We are trying to chase complete muscle stimulation. Okay. And we think about various different special techniques here. So again, I'm going to show you a couple of examples later on here as well. But pyramid sets, for example, this is typically where you'll start sort of heavier for each set. And then, again, it's fewer reps and you'll sort of start to maybe go up in the reps as you go along. And the reverse pyramid would be the other way round. Sorry, said it the wrong way round. You get heavier as you go up with fewer reps in a pyramid, right? So let's say you start with 15 and then you go 12 and then you go 10. Typically, a lot of you will see that. And then we've got something called reverse pyramid where you'll start with your heavier sets. Let's say your heavier set is 8 to 10, and then you start pushing out lighter. Now, many of you ladies might see a bit of a combination with your training as well. And again, this is just I quite like, and I'm going to show you an example later on, but I quite like this because again, it's just it's quite nice to kind of force out those higher reps as you go as well. So it would be, and again, just working on different muscle tension loads as well. And then your drop set would be, let's say, for example, all your sets, you've got 4 sets, they're all pretty bog standard. Let's say you're sitting between 10 to 12 reps the whole way through. And then on that last set, let's say the fourth set is a drop set. What that means is rather than getting heavier, you'll pull the pin down and you'll try and finish as many reps as you can within that. That's another way of kind of finishing off the exercise. All right. And oh, have I gone back? I've gone back. Okay. And then compound movements, again, just to kind of tell you typically what some of these might look like. So this is again your squats, presses, rows. So again, typically we'll kind of work more on that sort of lower to moderate rep range. There's again a high bang for your buck there. And again, we can do these earlier in the session when you've got that bit more energy to kind of push out. It's going to be more efficient and it's really good at helping muscle retention during our fat loss as well. So it used to be an old theory that you did more reps and that when you were dieting or you were trying to drop fat, for example, would be, oh, do higher reps. Well, actually, it's really important that you do keep those lower rep ranges as well, because this is the stuff that's going to help force those muscle fibers to stay in tune and stay active and stay them, maintaining that lean muscle tissue and getting you building as well. And then obviously we've got our isolation is more like a bit of a polish and balance, right, to the whole set. This is the stuff that we kind of do typically towards the end. Okay, so you might recognize this horse, or maybe you get other animals, for example. But congratulations, you've lifted a horse. Yeah. So typically this is what you might get at the end of the session. So this is again giving you some stats here. It will say what your, maximum weight was lifted within the set. So this is an example of a single leg deadlift. The maximum volume, so that's across all sets, for example, how much total was there, and what it typically might envision your 1 rep max to be. So we don't actually test a 1 rep max because again, that can sometimes elicit some, injury if you're going for that sort of stuff. And again, it's typically maybe more very advanced and people related to more like sports and performance that might need to do stuff like that. But yeah, the key thing here is doing more reps isn't the idea. Oh, hello. Hi. Yes, Riti, you've given me a hand.
I thought I could ask a question before we go further.
Yes.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, is there anything specific like a technique or like a formula you use to progress load? Like, for
Yes.
example, I've started with, like, for example, let's take an example of leg extension. So, for example, I'm starting with let's say, for example, I'm starting with 5 kgs to start with, and then how many weeks should I do that before I progress to progressively overload? And
Yeah.
like, what technique do you use for that?
Okay, cool. Very good. I've got a whole other training on progressive overload, so I'll definitely tell you where to find that in the folders. Have you watched that one?
No, not yet.
So that'll be a good one to maybe watch after this. I know you've got loads of homework, so I've been getting you watching loads of videos today. Um, but
Yeah.
yes, we're going to cover that ever so slightly in this as well. But typically, I would say a nice sort of 4 to 5 weeks spread is quite good. And there'll be reasons why you do, different focuses in terms of what you could do on each week to then encourage you to move up. We'll cover a teeny tiny bit within this training as well, within this about, I'll give you some examples as well for sure. Okay. All right. So progressing, I did say that. So this is more about the rep ranges. So we're not talking about the weight as such and being as in terms of over the course of weeks within this slide. This is more about when there are two different ends to a rep range. You actually want to start with the low end. So for example, if you're coming in and you're like, right, I've just recently moved up weight and oh, it says 8 to 10. Okay, so you try and hit the low end first, 8 reps, and then typically you'll try and hit the 10 reps and then you'll try and increase the weight thereafter. Okay. So again, that's one way to do it. So you could start with, let's say week one, you were only able to hit 8 reps. Week two, you could kind of push it out and do 10 reps at that. Week three, you could then increase the weight. And then week four, you could get used to the weight and then you could start again. And that would be, I would say that would be a really good way to do it on a 4 week cycle, as opposed to it months going past and you've not increased it. But at the same time, I do not expect you to lift heavier every single week. We also have to consider strength profiles, various different times of the month. You're going to feel different. You might feel weaker. There could be different times of the year as well. If you're sort of, there's some seasonal things that your body's trying to fight off as well that can kind of come in and affect how your training load goes. It could also be that you've been training for so many weeks and months on end that you're actually due to maybe even scale it back, which is what we'd call a deload, to kind of pull back and not go as heavier and just go through the motions. That there's always great benefit to that, to sort of offloading as well. Um, Hopefully that also helps you, Riti, with answering that question.
I had one more question.
Perfect.
So, how is there any progress? Is there any difference between how progression is done for males and females? I'm sure there must be uh, because we are also kind of our hormones as well, isn't it? Female hormones play a part of the role, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So what I would probably say there is, if you want my brute honest truth, is again, it really depends on personality type that goes with this as well. Because men will typically, not all of them, but they might typically choose to go heavier than they really should, than they're really ready for. They might try and lift heavier every single session and not actually consider things like form as much, or hitting the different, targeting the rep ranges, whether you're starting at the low end and then progressing with the reps. They might not. There's another thing that we could do is also tweak our rest times. Okay, so again, you can play around with that. So when you are your specific time of the month that just feels generally crap for you, most women it will be late luteal. Someone will be literally on your actual early follicular. So actually, when you are menstruating, again, it really depends on you and as an individual in terms of what sort of patterns and stuff. And we can have those conversations when you typically feel better or worse. But again, this is where you can play around with rest periods. So when you are in your period, or let's say your late luteal is when you feel worse in terms of strength profile, but you still want to keep training. Maybe you would increase the rest times within that. Or it could be that you had a shit night's sleep and you need to increase your rest period because you just feel like you can't push anything out. I certainly have those times as well. It's not always like exactly the same every month either. So yeah, it really just depends. Weather makes a difference as well. Again, if you're sort of less hydrated because it's hotter and you're sweating more, again, how does that affect things if you've got lower hydration levels in terms of how you're going? But yeah, in terms of the whole male and female thing, I think we have maybe more of an impact with more things to consider in terms of a physiological sense. But I think males typically might have more of an ego thing to kind of relax up on as well. And a lot of the time, women are not lifting heavy enough. And you've probably heard that as well, that men typically, they've got no fear. They kind of, oh, let me go for it. But women, maybe we keep a band-aid on for a little bit longer because we want to be like careful and joint safety and things like that. And that's another thing actually as well. Typically around late luteal again, your joint sense perception can be a little bit off as well. Some people find that, I mean, I'll joke and say I become slightly dyspraxic around that time. You typically, you might find that you just forget things or you trip up loads. So that's probably not a good time to go heavier if you find that that's how that affects things. Yeah? Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, cool. Perfect. All right. So here we go, progressing within each range. So let's use this as an example. So we've got this progressing load within each range. So we've got the example that let's say someone is opting for the use of hypertrophy of 8 to 10 rep range. So let's say week one, let's say this is a hip thrust. And week one they do 40 kilos, and set one they only managed to hit the 8 reps. Set two, they've rested, Reka, and they've had then set two, they've gone for 8 reps again. Then they've rested, and actually, even though they've rested, they just can't get that final rep in. So that will obviously indicate some fatigue there, which is why they've only hit rep 7. And then moving on to like week two, again, the strength profile may have increased, so they're actually able to increase the reps, so they want to try and push that bit more as well. It's important to push as well. They can do 9 reps, and then maybe again that fatigue hits in, and it's more 8 towards the end. And then you've got week 3. They're not quite ready to increase the weight just yet, but they've gone, oh, do you know what? Today I can get all the way up to 10. And then again, that strength profile drops slightly in terms of the following reps, despite having adequate rest time. Then there's the indication maybe it's time to increase weight again. So you'll come to week 4 and you can increase the weight. And as I say, this 4-week cycle is a really good thing to stick to. But I would also maybe even sandwich in 1 or 2 extra weeks, maybe even make it 6 weeks, right? 5 to 6 weeks at a stretch. And maybe that allows you to kind of consider, and this is all being that you have been consistent and you are actually training all your sessions week on week. Then I would say you could probably, again, think about stretching it out over a little bit longer in terms of increasing the weight and the load. Again, considerations for seasonal changes out there, seasonal changes within yourself as well. So hopefully that helps. All right. So I wanted to use this example here. Again, you might see this example from me in your sessions where, let's say, for example, we've taken this lat pull down and you start the session and it says 15 reps, 12 reps, and you think, oh, okay, there's a pyramid here. 10 reps. Okay, why am I going back to 15 reps again? Well, again, it's just to kind of get you really exhausting and pushing out. Okay, so for example, you've got the lighter load at 15 reps. let's say it's 40, let's say your lat pull down, let's say your lat pull down is comfortably 20 kilos and you can do 15 reps. Okay, so 20 kilos, you've done your 15 reps, you've rested your 60 to 90 seconds, and then you are on to set two and you'll go, you know what, I'm going to lift that bit heavier. So you'll drop the reps down and you'll increase the weight and you'll go to maybe 25. Maybe 25 is the next one on the pin. So you'll push out that bit more and you'll go to 25. Then you say to yourself, right, you know what, I'm really feeling good today. I think I'm going to try that bit heavier, and you go for 30. And if you're not, maybe you actually can only stay at 25, which is fine as well. But let's say you are feeling good and you go, right, yeah, I'm going to push it up to 30. I should say that you should really be trying to challenge yourself here. So you do your 30 kilos, you do your 10 reps, or you'll aim to target those 10 reps. And then you have your rest again and you drop the weight down again. I just realized the rest is not corresponding to what I had said in my chat a second ago. Ignore me. So yeah, then you've had your 45-second rest and you are going to go into, to be fair, this is a bit of an error here because I would put, if you look at my cursor, I'd go 15 reps, maybe we'd rest for 45 seconds, then you've gone forward. Then I would go maybe rest for 60 seconds. Then I might say actually rest for 1 minute 15 seconds. So, 75 seconds. And then maybe I'd say, okay, rest for 45 and then drop. This is where you would drop the weight. And now you've got two different ways of doing this. You can either drop the weight to the original 20 that you did, and you might be quite exhausted because you worked pretty hard here. So you'll drop to 20 kilos and you'd finish off with the 15. Or you might say to yourself, do you know what? I'm really pushing it. I want to see if I can push it that bit more. You could rest a little bit longer. You could rest maybe 90 seconds after that third set, rest for 90 seconds. And then you would go, I'm going to be really brave and I'm going to go for I'm going to go for 25 kilos. I'm going to push out that 15 because you know that on that 25 you did 12 before, but you're going to push it out to 15 just by giving yourself that bit more of rest. Okay. So yeah, again, just to kind of explain again what effects are we trying to create with all these different things. Yeah, with a heavy load, some mechanical tension, right? Some metabolic stress, and this is that pump, that burn, some muscle damage, right? Controlled. But this is obviously where you are going to be breaking down in order to rebuild stronger, because that's the thing. You do need to break down your muscle tissue to rebuild. It's not going to change unless you give it some stress. Okay. And yeah, ideally these need to be hit throughout and across the week in whichever sort of phase we're in. Some of the common mistakes, I guess, typical of women. I'm being super sexist here, but let's just, highlight it, that you might stick to the same bloody weight for months. You're not challenging yourself. And this again could be why you're not getting those strength gains. Okay. It's got nothing to do with weight loss here. This is more to do with how the muscles, the shape is working, how toned you're still getting, right? Or you're just doing the same reps for every single exercise. So there can be some benefit with that, especially for beginners, again, with getting used to the movement patterns and also working on, again, not over pushing it. And you'll probably see these changes that I will start to dip in and go, right, this person definitely needs some more challenge in these rep ranges. So let's do that. Or rushing, again, your rest. You kind of opened up about that earlier, about rushing your rest in those heavy lifts. Just take your time. And yeah, just maybe even avoiding low reps. And I know nobody on this program is really going to do that. Maybe the people that train only exclusively from home. But there can be this sort of fear around bulking. The thing of bulking, it's all going to be related to your caloric intake. Okay. That's where you're going to get the bulking effect if you start eating in a surplus. But if you are working towards maintenance and a deficit, you're not going to get bulky. Okay. But yeah, what's the benefit of us doing any of this? Well, as women, we are going to benefit from the strength work. It's not just about our muscle, it's also our bone health and our metabolism as well. So bone health massively important as we age as well, and we start getting shifts and changes and drops in estrogen, etc. as well. Okay. Right. So action. You need to ensure that you are tracking your lifts. So for some of you girls that are watching this back, um, I've actually added a little demo at the end of this as well, because sometimes you're telling me you're not sure where to input your weight and you're not sure how to change the rep ranges. And maybe you're not sure as well in terms of what it means. Gosh, I really should have shared my second screen today. That would have been quite handy to just get a little live demo. I'll see if I can connect at the end. But yeah, idea is, yeah, pushing to the top end of the range before adding weight. So we kind of gone over that. And then respecting the rest times for respect, rest, reka times for heavy lifts. And I think this is a really important statement here as well, but use form as the limiter, not your fear. And so, what I mean by this is that typically, again, this is going to come back to us as being women, that sometimes you'll kind of go, I don't want to go heavier because I'm scared I'm going to injure myself. Again, we can have those conversations about making you stronger in certain ranges of movement so you don't have that fear. And again, if there's injury related to it, I get it. I get why there is a limiter with the fear, but really it needs to be your form, okay? And this is why it's really important that you, when you are training, you're training with intention, you're training with, you know, not speed, you're training and being controlled throughout your movement as well. So you're focusing on that form. So when you know that form starts to fail, that's your limiter. So when your form starts to break, that's when you stop, not when your head tells you, not when your head goes, oh yeah, I'm done. I trained earlier today, and I tell you what, on one of my exercises, I was doing some really horrible split squat positions, and I pretty much almost collapsed on my last set on my right leg. And I went, oh, yes, that's it. My form has limited me. There's my limitation. That's where I've failed. That means I'm done, right? So let's try and start to work and push that bit harder as well. Okay, and this is a little reminder. If we need to do some screen sharing, we can do, but the person in question that's sort of confused about this, I've actually got in the technical support folder video demos on how to go in and input things. So I actually just took screenshots today, just randomly from a program, just to show you what some of these things mean. So just put a 3 in the Zoom chat if you can see my arrow and blue cursor. And hopefully that's not just me.
Yeah.
Right, brilliant. That sounds even better. Okay. So firstly, we've got all these different bits here on the screen for the leg press. There's all these wonderful little icons. Again, sometimes I add some notes in. Where it says sets, that's obviously your set. Your rest timer will pop up after you've ticked the first one. If you're doing supersets and there's no rest timer, you actually do go straight into the next exercise. That's the whole point of that format as well. But where it says kilos, you just tap into that box and you type them. And then you can actually also add in a full stop if it's like 7.5, right? Reps, you can actually tap on the reps box and you can go and scroll up and down the scroller to change that. And then you must tick this, and this will go pink, okay, as per branding, blue and pink. So you need to just make sure that all of those things are input. Now, let's say, for example, you're within your exercise program itself, but you want to know what the hell half of this stuff means, right? So when we've got the see this little dumbbell with a little plus sign next to it. When we've got the dumbbell with the plus sign, that basically means you can now. This is a new feature. It's been a couple of months now that this has been in sort of. Pardon? I think I just keep getting feedback every now and then. So yeah, this allows you to add an exercise before the exercise. So you could put an exercise in before the leg press, or you could put one after, or you could add your own double exercise, so your own superset. So this bit here won't add a superset to the leg press. It will just add an entirely separate superset. If you do end up adding your own superset, just go in exercise after, and you'll just have to mark it off after and leave me a little note. Let's say you go to the three little dots. Okay, so we've got the three little dots there. The three little dots allow you to add an extra set. So let's say you're doing 4 sets. They allow you to replace an exercise. And I've given you full access to this. So all of you should have full access to be able to, I think it's 3,800 and something exercises that I've got within the app. So you should be able to replace those exercises, and they're always growing, as well as we make adaptations and stuff. So you can also delete the last set. So if you're like, crap, I added in 5 sets, but only meant to add in 4, well, then you can just delete the last set as well. Okay. And then if you have a look here, there's this little clock icon, which is deep on the left. If you click on that, that gives you history. It will give you history. And for example, there's no data because it's not being used, and it's just a random one that I've done. But for example, here it will just come up with a graph, and then you can actually see what you last did last week or over the weeks. It will keep scrolling, and you can kind of see what you've done over time, right? So it will tell you what that is. Okay, so I thought that would be quite interesting to show you girls. And then finally here, this isn't always the case, but especially for some of you that might need pre-drilled in alternate exercises, because you might be training at home, or your gym might have other options, or maybe the app, again, I've not programmed it for everything, but again, for most things, there's always some sort of alternative. Again, that little blue downward icon there, that's not always present because it wasn't present on the leg press, which means that you have to find your own replace exercise. But here on the hip abduction is actually a pre-drilled in exercise. That's what that little downward arrow means. And if we have a look at the alternate exercises, you've got your hip abduction, clam raise, and some banded hip abductions. But ladies, I hope that was helpful. Did you learn something new? Put a 5 in the Zoom chat, or you can just unmute and just tell me.
I found it useful, Richie. Thank you.
Brilliant, brilliant. So hopefully these sort of lunchtime ones are quite good as a, occasional drop in here and there. But the timetable is in the group as well for August. I will repost that as we've had some newbies. So I'll just ensure that everyone's on form with the next topics, etc. But yeah, I love doing these. These are great. And I love it when I have you girls on board as well and joining me live. So we will see you here next time.